All right. I'm gonna be next. I'm gonna try my best to go through them as I wouldn't say as fast as possible, but at a better pace, I would like to say, because we don't have much time. So, I'm gonna show
Repair,
you.
we will extend it around probably an hour just to
Yeah.
still.
Um, I can't seem to share my screen, Mihao.
Oh, good that I stopped before I went to the bathroom. You guys would be frozen right now.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Share screen. All right. Can you guys see?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start with Alina. So I've taken a look at some of your effects here, and honestly, I really like the way that you started with your effects, like starting from tutorials. It is a good start when it comes to trying and starting something. But as a general rule of thumb, and I tell this to all of my students and anybody who asks for feedback for things that they've done on a tutorial, is the first thing that I would ask them is to remake it in a way where they would have their own twist on it or their own style with it. Because, for example, if we have, or like take a look at this. This is from a tutorial from Pavo. And when I look at this, I'm like, okay, so the way that I would love to see more of this is you having your own twist, your own thoughts on how to create this. When it comes to like putting an effect together from a tutorial, you have a certain result that you'll always get. But as a VFX artist, what you try to do is take it a step further and go above that and try to make it even better than the one that you looked at in the tutorial. And that's like a lot of things that I would say for your portfolio. One thing I noticed is you have nice butterflies here. So what I would do is, for example, for an effect like this, I would take it into a environment that has a bit of forest or flowers or something like that, and then put these effects into. Partly because it will show how your effect would blend into the environment, and also how it would work when a player walks through, or if you want to add a bit of a like technical know-how where you have the butterflies go away when the player gets near them, and so on. It's those small things that you do to elevate the way that your effect looks like and feel. Let's see. For the same thing for this, the flies, I would suggest adding that into an environment where you have either corpses, trash, or things like that, where it would let you do a bit of um, basically showcasing your effect in an environment to see how it would look like. One thing I have for this effect, I would suggest, and people would probably give me a lot of flack for this, but I wouldn't recommend copying CG Howe's videos, partly because there's a lot of misinformation that comes from him in terms of technical know-how and the way that he does things. I'm not trying to like burn him at the stake or anything. It's just more of like what we've noticed over the years. Copying his tutorials isn't really a good start for anybody. It's just it looks good, but it doesn't work well in a production environment. It doesn't work well in a technical aspect. So I would avoid that in general. But from what I can see right now, I saw that you've put a little bit of your own twist into it, but I would highly recommend you doing that through the shaders instead of actually using the particles for this. But other than that, overall, great job. As a start, I think you have really good pieces to start polishing, especially the blood, the impacts. So I would basically just say you need to have a bit of feedback round and sit down with basically on the real-time VFX Discord and ask about these specific ones in general. What do you guys think, Bjorn and yeah?
I agree with most of the points. So there's especially two of them are the very important ones about that you can follow the tutorial, but it's very important to try to put like change things. Try to not go one-to-one. Maybe like, for example, try to reach the same result at the end, but then play with the values and try to get a bit different feel. Second one, I forget what was the second one, but the third one that I also thought about is put some of your effects into environments. Oh, you have waterfall. Make a scene with where you can actually have a waterfall and see how it blends with the environment. Or you have flies and butterflies. Also perfect for some kind of environment. Just make that like one environment and put a lot of effects there, and then you will have much better and stronger piece with just those simple effects.
Yeah.
And Bjorn now.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, it's literally that. I think everything Mustafa and Michał already said is kind of like your main path, or should be your main path. You did a lot of good stuff, and you followed tutorials to a level where you can say, okay, you replicated it in a pretty good way. There's usually a lot of people which replicate tutorials and they get to like 30% of the quality level. So the pure fact that you managed to get pretty close to those is already a really good indicator that you understand most of the stuff that's going on in those tutorials. And now it's more a thing of like when you do your next tutorial, and I would say definitely you should probably go for more tutorials because there's always more stuff to learn in those. But make sure that you just kind of play a bit more around with like it afterwards. You replicate the system exactly as is. Then you think about, okay, but what could be like my theme for like the Rebel Way? Of course, I always thought like you built this effect now, and I think about it in a sense of like Overwatch, League of Legends. There's a new skin coming out. That skin, maybe it's Halloween themed, maybe it's like a winter theme, maybe it's like a necromancer, and then you just kind of incorporate a couple of new elements, different colors, and you have like a good way of like having a soft entry to doing kind of your own thing because you have a good system at the start, and then you improve it and you just make sure that everything feels well connected in the end again. And from there on, you will just kind of improve automatically to a point where we feel comfortable to do stuff without tutorials, because honestly, this takes quite a long time for most people. You just kind of do something completely from scratch from your idea.
All right. So moving on to Raffle. I hope I got your name right. I suck with names. Okay. So I really like the way that you set this. Oh, Raf. Okay, Raf. So I took a look at the Escape Studio project that you've done, and I really liked the way you implemented everything in there. Like the only thing that I have to say on this project, which basically gonna go through a little bit. Let's see. I think here is one thing that I would have loved to see, and this would have been perfect for it, is when the actual plane goes by, you would have dust kick-ups and things like that that basically showcases the environment being dusty and it has a lot of dust kick-ups. It's just like an observation for that, but when you go through the actual things that you've done, I love the way that you have the dust going around here, the way you have your fog, and especially near the trees. Actually, it'll be in a little bit more. Yeah. like the dress up for this area gives it a bit of life, but what I would have loved to seen a little bit here is just a wind direction. That would have been perfect, like things getting moved around. Love the butterflies in the scene. You have really good look for the tree, especially like with the the leaves falling. Let's see. Yep, here. You have a bit of, I think, either dust motes or, oh yeah, right here. Really like the effects that you've set up on this. And the one thing here that I would have loved to also seen is the engine kickups. When you have a lot of dust and things that are basically going outwards when it comes to like a airplane or just a jet taking off. I can see the effects that you have here. One thing that I would suggest doing is, and this is probably a me thing, I would suggest having only the actual fire trail, and then what you have for this is mostly the actual particles going out. So to simulate that heat going outward from your engine to the plane. But yeah, for that basically it when it comes to this one. Honestly, like I think you've done a great job in terms of all the environmental stuff, the post process. The thing that I would have loved to seen is more of a, they like to call it living world in the industry, but for me, I like to basically think of action and consequences. So, for example, you have an action that has a plane or something that is near your screen. So, for example, here, that is causing the screen to shake because something is going over you, but also the power of the jet, the actual speed, and the air being kicked up basically causes whatever dust and things to be kicked around in the scene. And that's like small things like that that gives it that extra layer of, holy shit, this looks amazing. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. So for the grenade explosion, I think I'm gonna probably have the same feedback on this. So here's the thing. When it comes to an explosion like this, and I'm gonna be a bit biased with this one, and there's a great example with Battlefield 2042 and Delta Force. So Delta Force basically created their explosions using one texture that can be basically looks like a I don't want to say a nuclear explosion, but it's more of a fireball. The problem with that is if you use that for explosions, that is tank explosions, or if you use it for things like grenade explosions, you'll see the same effect over and over again. But for an effect like this, I would say this is a bit too much in terms of the actual uh, amount of particles. That's the first thing. The other thing is too much in terms of the flip books. So, for example, you can see here, your flip books are basically uniform and they are all, doesn't have a random rotation on it. So they all look like stacked on top of each other. So for an effect like this, for example, for the grenade, I would decrease the amount of particles that you have in terms of flip books and focus on impactful effects. So what I mean by that is when you throw a grenade, for example, in COD or in Battlefield, you see a pop. And that's what you're looking for in terms of grenades, because grenades don't explode like this. They explode like a pop. And then whatever is around it is basically a shock wave and then basically a kick up. So in terms of having a grenade, when you throw it, you'll have a fire, which is like a small burst, and then you'd have the refraction, and then whatever is being kicked up around it. And then from there goes basically whatever caliber it is. In terms of what you have here, I really like it. The one thing I would suggest in terms of your simulations and flipbooks is make sure you take a look at your frames in terms of details. So you have probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have the first 5 to 10 frames that are completely white in terms of what's it called? In terms of details in your flipbook, where you don't see anything until like frame 5. And basically from that point on, you'd have your details. So one thing I usually do with my explosions is I make sure that if you turn off the color and they're like basically black and white, it will basically be a gradient where you can see every single details from frame 1 to frame like 64, and then increase the amount of a bloom on it in the engine. All right. I see that you have the outward donuts, which is the kickups. It looks nice. So one thing I would suggest you take a look when it comes to the grenade is the transition between the two effects where you have the smoke and the dust, because they fade into each other. And what I would do is try and find a balance between the colors where either they all look the same, or you try and set up a way where your material is what provides the color. So let's say, for example, you throw a grenade on dust, not dust, like on sand. You would have the grenade explosion itself, a little bit of its kickups, and a lot of sand with debris. Okay. Think you have a good start to this, to be honest. I really like your setup in terms of putting everything together. You have the right idea. You have the right execution. You just need the logic behind how explosion calibers work. Because C4, grenades, artillery strikes, and everything else requires their own different way of thinking when creating the simulations, and when in terms of doing the actual work to put them together. But overall, I think you have the right execution to try and do something other than a grenade. Let's see. What else? Flamethrower. Okay, so for the flamethrower, I think you have a really good start for this, by the way. You have the actual blue flame for the fuel, and it's basically its hottest point. You have a good start for the thing overall. The one thing I would say for this is I would like to see more smoke on top. So one thing you would want to take a look at is there are some footage for World War II, or I think World War I flamethrowers. That would be perfect for trying and doing something like this. But overall, I think you have a right execution for this again. From a first perspective, it needs a bit of work, especially for the way that you can actually see the angle of the flames. You might want to work a little bit more on the dissipation. And I would like to see a bit of a transition between the fire to its fading away. So I would use a little bit more of your alpha to do that. Let's see here. For this fire, I would Okay, so there are like a couple of things that I'm thinking of when it comes to this. The way that it actually spreads, I would do it no, I would do it dynamically in a blueprint where you can actually fade them in and then they would still slowly grow. You have a little bit of jumping or like stuttering in your frames. You might want to take a look at in your flipbook. But other than that, you have, like I said, you have the right execution for realistic and the right way of compositing everything. It's just the curves, timing, and the smaller stuff in here. But yeah. Any thoughts, guys?
Bjorn, go first.
Oh, I should go first. Okay. Oh, yeah. No, honestly, I think this is a very good intermediate portfolio. Honestly, there is a lot of stuff in there which kind of showcases that you know what you're supposed to build, but you're not fully there yet in terms of like the polishing part. There's a lot of stuff from the simulation side that Mustafa already kind of talked about. There's also a lot of things just on the fading in, fading out stages where I would say it's not really giving like a fully polished feel to it. But not really bad because like all the elements are already there. It's just like the final polish, which is kind of lacking in some parts. So overall, your portfolio does have a couple of really good sequences, and I think what you seem to like focus on is more the cinematic aspect, so either environmental VFX or just like cutscene VFX, and I think for that you're actually doing a really good job already. With all the remaining things, there is not really a lot of stuff which would work nicely in a gameplay setting except like the already placed environment VFX. I think in the one little Unreal rundown, exactly this one, it kind of shows very nicely like also the post processing work and all of that. But it's more the stuff which is supposed to make the world feel alive and stuff, which you seem to focus on, plus like the cinematic camera transitions. I don't know if you did it yourself, but like all of that flows pretty good together. So from here on, I would say you're doing a pretty good job already. Try to look a bit more into the simulation side in general. Yep. Just like the physics behind it, like the real world references are going to be your best friend. And if you can't replicate it one by one to what you see in a reference, you probably did not fully understand how the simulation software works because you can probably do it and then just kind of put a bit more like boom on it, like what is it called, the Bayhem, kind of try to implement that a bit more. This is also how usually like games like Call of Duty and stuff do it. But like I said, really good starting point, and from here on more simulation work, a bit more on how do things look cohesive as one system, and then you're on a pretty good path.
Yeah, I agree with Mustafa Bjorn a lot. You already have a really nice work out there. I especially like the environments, the over presentation of like cinematic than on like more cinematic look, more like looks that are kind of like from a game already, which is already adding quite a lot to how I would look like when I would be reviewing people. That you know how to make it look good in the actual scenario. It's just the polishing factor, and as a Polish person, I can definitely say that. And yes, just polish your FX. So we can move to the next one, I guess.
Hopefully you found that helpful, Raf. All right. Next we have Oberon or Oberon. I hope I got it right. So, taking a look at your stuff here, I really like some of the environmental stuff that you have, and your application for like an art in general has really good impact on your effects, the way that they feel and the movement and so on. some of your pieces, I would say, more work with environmental effects. Like this is more gameplay, I would say. But I would say this stuff here has really nice feeling to it, really nice application. And I love the use of color and the way that the things move around the objects. Is just honestly gives me that feeling of like, holy shit, I found something that I need to go pick up and so on. What I would love to see from you and your work, genuinely, it would be more gameplay stuff. Because honestly, the way that you've doing your effects just gives it a bit more. I want to see more. I want to feel like I want to play the effects. I want to see how it actually plays in a game. I don't have much feedback in terms of the style, but I like it. The way that the feeling that your effects give are just honestly really good. But I would say I would love to see more of your stuff, and I would like to see more gameplay stuff. Yeah, you guys, let me know what you think, Bjorn and Mihao.
Yeah, I can start this time for a bit of variety. So I love your colors, especially that blade that is like a lootable object. It looks really satisfying. I love that it has those purples and then orange from the bottom, kind of focusing the eyes on that certain part that is having that little like a flash going over it. It's just really well done, and I would love to pick something up like this from a game. So it's already really well executed. All your effects are very simple, but that's actually very important for a portfolio. You want simple stuff that is well done and just satisfying. In your case, you just need what Mustafa mentioned, so a bit of variety. You have a lot of loopable effects. Just add a bit of those effects that also show your timing. So some kind of attack magic thing that blows something up. It can be very simple also, like a very simple explosion or ability. But just you need to show that you also know how to do a proper timing, and then you can easily find the job. Also, a bit different presentation. Obviously, Blue Sky is probably not the best for the portfolio you sent to the recruiter. But I suppose you know that.
Yeah, I would agree to that as well. If you want to have a VFX portfolio, sending your Twitter account usually also doesn't work that nicely. So, but yeah, so I would fully agree. So sure, it's mainly the same two colors and stuff you used, but your effects already show a pretty good understanding of like artistic principles and like color usage. Everything blends well together, is very pleasing to the eye, and just has a very good calm nature to it, which fits to those effects. This obviously does not show anyone if you could do gameplay VFX, which is not really necessary. But then I would love to see all of that like in a well placed together portfolio where you just kind of, you have a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff like in its natural movement, butterflies, you have those effects in the middle, like the hero asset, like the sword which you have there, and then just like kind of make the world feel alive and calming, fitting, like what you currently have. If you have an environment which can showcase that right away, you're on a really, really good path. And with the art style you're going for, you seem to kind of target a bit more towards like the indie scene anyway. And I think for that, you're really good already. So, yeah, honestly, just do more stuff, present it nicely, uh, get a different platform like Blue Sky, please, for it. And then you are on a really good path like with this. It's really nice, especially if those are like one of your first effects. It's a very, very good starting point.
Yep, I totally agree. All right, and for the final one, we have Alexi. So this is going to be a kind of a two-parter. So I'll start with the realistic stuff, and Bjorn will take over for the semi-stylized or semi-realistic stuff. Okay, so for the Embergen and Unreal, Okay. I really like your use of the embers here. The actual flipbook looks really nice, and I really like the way that you set up the timing. The one thing that I have a little bit of feedback on is the speed. Your fire is faster than a fire that is done for, I would say, for a campfire. To me, this is more of something constantly burning and like the fuel is being added to it. So my advice, like, or feedback on this is to slow it down by, I would say, about 20 more percent to just see how it feels. Because like when you're trying to burn wood and you throw basically wood in there, it slowly starts to pick up speed and so on. I really like the way that you have your smoke in here. It's not too much and it's not too little. It's just enough to showcase that something is burning. Your embers are really good, and here I can actually see it better. And I love the fact that you actually put it in an actual environment that showcases everything that's happening around it. And actually, now that I see it, I feel like the wind is what's causing the fire to be faster. But again, you could slow it down and see how that would feel like. Really love the embers on there and how they burst every couple of seconds. Honestly, the only feedback that I have on this would be the speed of your fire. Other than that, it looks really nice. I really like it. I especially love the fact that you have a little bit of a bloom on the middle, and outwards it fades out just a bit. Okay, let's see for the explosion. Ooh, this is really nice. Okay, and for this one, I would kind of say the same for the others, except, yeah. So the one thing that I feel about this is your shock versus impact feels a bit off. So what I mean by that is your screen shake versus the actual sparks that are starting, for example, sorry. I'm just going to do a bit of drawing here. So right here, your particles stop early on. It feels like it's being dragged so much. So it doesn't feel like your barrel or whatever is exploding is compressed enough. So when you look at explosions and when you look at, for example, C4, part of the reason C4 explodes as violently as it does, it's a spark and whatever pressure of the chemicals that you have in there explodes all at once. It's the same thing with a grenade. When you have the pin that drops and whatever ignites at the bottom, it's because it's contained in a metal cover. That is the pressure that's basically is exploding. Here, I don't feel that at all. Partly is because of these sparks. It feels like they're slowly dying or immediately dying after like going up. So there isn't enough velocity for them. While the explosion itself is going upward and giving up a lot of heat and expansion. So I would say that the only thing that I can say for this that is just feels off to me is that like there is a bit of disconnect between your velocities in the sparks and the way that the flipbook is happening. I'm just trying. Yeah, you do actually have distortion. I thought I didn't see it, but you do have it. Yeah, but other than that, I really like the way that this feels. And in terms of the upward flipbook, I think this is one of the cases that does work, but also you could try and take a look more take a look at a more of an omnidirectional explosion with a little bit of upward velocity. Okay. And the last one would be the AA burst. Oh, cool. Honestly, I don't think I have any feedback on this. It looks really nice. It does serve its purpose, and it comes to this. Well, maybe I would say only one thing to this. The speed of your fire in there is a bit slow. When an AA gets hit, or when an AA gets fired in the air, it's immediately goes off, and when it goes off, it's a lot of darkness and a lot of like it's just instantaneous. It doesn't have a lot of things to burn, so I would basically change the timing of your fire. But yeah, I think from my perspective, that would be. Oh, actually, just let me see it one more time. Yeah, Gibby was right. A little bit of like shape in this, like shape differences would be, and variety would be great also. But yeah, that's for me on the realistic parts. Handing it over to Bjorn, or if you have any other feedback, Bjorn or Miha, on this.
No, pretty good
Very solid.
analysis, I would say.
All right, I will leave it up to you then.